Hello, everybody. Today is Tanya Tuesday, and we have some amazing guests that are going to join me today. I'm a few minutes early, but it's always best to be early than late. That's what they say. And I have some amazing guests that are going to join me today. They are in the waiting room here, and we have a lot of incredible topics that we're going to talk about today. First, we have Miss Tammy Savoy. She is a singer, a pinup enthusiast, and a model. And I'm so excited to be able to share her journey in the retro vintage community. We're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the diversity there or the lack of diversity. And then I have an amazing woman who's going to join me. I'm going to tell you all about her. But first, I want to bring in Tammy right away. I think I'm at the 3 o'clock hour. It's coming. I would just want to make sure that we get more people on this live before I allow you to see this beautiful face that's going to join us. She's incredible. She's from Chicago. And yeah, it's going to be a great show today. So we're right about at 2:59. If you are just joining me, hola, how are you? I think that's my cousin saying hola prima. Most of you probably don't know, but I'm from my mom was from Panama, so all my cousins speak Spanish and a little bit of French, and I'm the American who could barely speak Spanish well. I understand it very well, but hello, cousin. Hello, Robert from New Orleans. Everyone who will be joining and chiming in with us today on this Facebook Live. We had a great time yesterday with Michael, and we had Ted Duane from the Mumford and Sons, our dear friend who joined us, and it was amazing. He told us some really cool things about bees and about his incredible journey as with Mumford and Sons, as well as a little bit about the performance and how electrifying they are, where all that comes from. So without further ado, I want to invite in my first guest, which is Miss Tammy Savoy from Chicago. She's absolutely stunning. She is a vintage pinup model as well as an artist, and we'll dive right into that. So Tammy's going to join us in 1 second. Hi, Tammy.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. Good.
I haven't seen you since you came to our show in Chicago, and it was freezing.
Oh gosh, I remember we had our big coats on.
We had our big coats on, and I'm so excited to have you today. For all of you who are just chiming in, this is Miss Tammy Savoy. As you all know, if you've been following me, how much I really just have indulged and dived right into the whole pinup vintage community, and one of the I would say one of the people who is really who are really pushing this whole community forward would be you, Tammy, especially
Oh,
being a woman of color doing this, where, as you know, a lot of us aren't represented very well, in that market. So um, I think I lost you a little bit. So I want to talk a little bit about your journey in becoming a retro vintage model. How did that start?
oh goodness. It actually happened accidentally. When I was younger, I always loved the Elgin girls. How you see the pinups and stuff. And I had always wanted to do like a photo shoot. And so I did a photo shoot, and finally when I got around to doing the photo shoot, I did a calendar. Like I went big. I was like, I'm gonna go all out. I'm gonna do a calendar.
Yeah.
So from that one calendar, I took my photos at Bavone Pinups here in Chicago. And the lady named Heather, who's the owner, she's amazing. Like she makes you feel so beautiful. Like if you haven't ever experienced this type of thing, you need to go do it. Like it's amazing. And so since I was younger, like I've always been into this. Like so I'm glad that I finally just like went for it. And that was back in 2014, I believe, when I did the calendar. And yeah, and ever since then, like that that's what made everything take off for me, because that also started the music for me as well.
Wow.
Because the photographer who took my photos, she put me in touch with Lance Lipinski and the Lovers, and I started singing backup with him.
Awesome.
And from there, the girl group happened, the Lovettes,
The
a
Lovettes. Yeah.
Lovettes. So
Yes.
we were singing backup for him, and now we have our own show. So like it's just been like taking off from there. Yeah. So
That is awesome. And you
yeah.
know what I love about what you do with the Lovettes, and you're also with his name is drawing a blank. I met him on Kayamo.
Chris Costello, yes.
Yes, Casello, and I love what you guys do with the rockabilly music,
Yeah.
uh, which is incredible. I mean, I think you're keeping a genre of music alive that a lot of people don't even really, if they're not following the pinup community, know that it still exists. And not only does it exist, it's thriving. I mean, you guys have large followings.
Absolutely.
And you're killing it when you're on stage, and I get to watch you and you're so poised, and when I see you're reminiscent so much of like Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan, that beauty and that class that they had. And I remember you saying something, people get offended when you say things like, well, I'm keeping class alive, or I'm keeping
Yeah.
the culture of Sarah Vaughan or Ella Fitzgerald alive. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. I think
Yeah.
that it's obvious that there is a style of music that is a little bit further than, what Ella Fitzgerald and Sarah Vaughan did. They wear less clothes than,
Yeah. Yeah.
we'll just leave it there. But but I think I'm so I marvel at what you do for not just the genre of rockabilly, but the representation that you have for young women all around the world,
Yeah.
who are following you. And I find that in starting to get into the vintage community, that there's a huge following overseas more so than in the
Yeah.
United States.
Absolutely. And they, oh gosh, they appreciate it so much. They love it. Like when I go out there, I sell out of shows, sell out of merch, everything. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Um, and for me with my set list, I purposely pick songs from back in the 50s with
Mhm.
artists that they weren't really recognized that much like that. So I want to pay homage to them
Mhm.
and give them the recognition that they deserve.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, they did covers of their songs, and that's the only way that people knew about
Mhm.
their songs.
Right.
So I purposely put these artists on my set list, and a lot of people in other countries, they know all about it. They're
Oh
like,
yeah.
they're
They're
like,
like, "Ooh."
love that. But it's crazy because sometimes in the States, people don't know. They think that it's actually my songs, and I'm like, no, I didn't write that.
What are some of the songs that you've covered that people wouldn't necessarily know here from, an artist of, are they usually an artist of color, or are they just an artist
Yeah.
that was very popular and people didn't know?
Yes, yes, it's a little mixture of both, but mostly African American women
Mm,
who didn't really get the recognition back then. Like one of the examples that I tell people is when you hear Fujiyama Mama, like who do you think
mhm.
about when you hear that song? Usually people tell me Wanda Jackson because she covered that song.
Yeah.
That song was actually first sang by Ernestine Allen,
Wow.
and she came out. She came out with a lot of hits and stuff, but that was the one that made it big by someone else. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
one of the songs that's on my set list is "Blown About Your Business" that I sing by her.
Wow.
She
That's so awesome.
was like so sassy, like got blown about your business.
Yeah. And you can do sassy and not sweat. If I do sassy, I'm like, I'm a mess by the time I walk off the stage. I'm like, I
Oh
want to
no!
I want to be able to be put together like you are when you walk off stage. You give a great show and you're like, okay. I'm like, looking crazy when I walk up.
Oh no, but I don't know. I think because I really don't sweat a whole lot. Like that's
Okay.
just me. Like I'll get like a little beads on my
Yeah.
forehead a little bit, but it doesn't really unless it's really hot. Like
Yeah.
I don't really get too sweaty that much. So I'm kind of lucky in that way.
Yeah, you are definitely. And then you're in Chicago too, so your body's probably used to being cold.
No, I don't think my body will ever get used to being cold. I can't stand it. But yeah, it's crazy. That might have something to do with it.
Well, I have I'm going to bounce back and forth a lot about, just representation because, a lot of
Mhm.
our show today is about that, just making, and there's so many things going on in the world. Yes, we have COVID. Yes, we have, issues with politics and, these race relations that are starting to pop up. I mean, they've always been there, but now they're being highlighted more than ever because of social media and all those different things. What do you think are some of the challenges that you've had, being African American woman in that community?
Ooh, some challenges. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think. I mean, for me, my challenge mostly right now is that I don't I don't like write my own music and stuff like that, and I don't. I'm always like doing a whole lot of stuff, but it's like not like my
Your
thing.
music, yeah,
Yeah, it's not my thing.
yeah.
So it's kind of that makes it a little difficult sometimes, but
Hmm.
um, I still feel like I'm just gonna still do my thing
Yeah,
because it's what I love to do. So I'm
yeah.
just still gonna be out here doing it. But I don't know really.
I love that perspective because I think what you said initially, and I wanted to ask that question because a lot
Mhm.
of times you hear people say things like, oh, because I'm a person of color, I have these challenges. But
Mhm.
sometimes if you're in a niche market, if you're that person that's doing it, it's a beautiful thing because, as you said, overseas it's appreciated. It's worship. So
Mhm.
the challenge isn't, you may not have a challenge at all. It may be a good thing because you're the only one doing it. So I just wanted to ask
True.
that question, because
Mhm.
I think that's important to ask. We do have some questions for those who love the vintage community. They had some very interesting questions for you, and
Okay.
I'm gonna go through probably like 6 or 7 of them
Okay.
for you. The first one was, what's your favorite fairy tale growing up?
Ooh, my favorite fairy tale. That's a good one. I mean, I didn't really do too many fairy tales back in the day, but I mean, I didn't really. Um, how about we do like Disney movies? Because I feel like I used to watch a lot of Disney movies.
Mm-hmm.
The first one I ever watched was The Little Mermaid. That one was cool, but my favorite was Aladdin.
Aladdin,
Yeah,
yeah,
I love Aladdin.
Aladdin was awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, another one. This is very interesting. We both could probably agree with this. If
Okay.
you could max out your card at one store and not have to pay the bill, which store would you choose?
Oh my gosh, there's a lot of them, but let me try to see. Man, there's a shop here that is one of my favorites in Chicago, and it's called Knee Deep Vintage, and that's where I get most of my most of my stuff from.
Oh,
Like
wow.
the owner Carlos, he when I come in the store, like he'll just give me a bunch of stuff to try on. He's like, whatever you don't want, just keep it in there. Whatever you want, just get it. So
That
he
is so
knows my
awesome.
my size, my style, all of that. So he always has a lot of good finds. I
So
was
we need to go
so
to
grateful.
Nietzsche Vintage. We need to go there in Chicago. Okay. So I have another one. What fictional character is most like yourself?
Hmm. You know, I would think Princess Tiana.
Oh, Princess, I like that.
Tiana. Yeah.
Oh, this is the question that most vintage women, pinups, would probably not want to ask because we just love getting dressed up and dolled up all the time. Okay. If you suddenly found yourself turned into a man, how would you spend your day?
Oh, that's weird. I don't know. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's a hard one.
Yeah,
How would I even? Because I'm not a man.
I know. No scarves, no earrings, no hair. I mean, what
No,
would
like
you
what
do?
would I do with my life? I would probably be I would probably still be dapper.
Dapper. So you,
So,
so you'd be a dapper vintage.
switching around, be different.
Okay, suits and ties, and pendants and hats. Yeah,
Yes.
socks. I like that.
I don't know if anybody knows like Dandy Wellington. Like if you look on
Yeah,
his page, oh my gosh, I'm like I can just look at his page all day.
I love his stuff, and he finds some of the craziest, but he still makes it. There's a thin line for making it look like you're in a costume
Yeah,
to
true.
making it look like this is just who you are. Like when I see you, it just looks like this is who you are, and because you found your niche, you found your way. And I remember asking you, I said, "Well, Tammy, do you own a pair of jeans?" And I remember looking at your face. You were like,
I have a few,
you
probably
were
like
like,
two.
I do, but they're not like jeans. I said, okay. I love it. I love it.
I like
Okay,
bell bottoms.
you
I still
do?
like bell bottoms. Yes, I'm obsessed with bell bottoms. I just don't like the tight jeans that are
Yeah.
like painted on. I
Okay.
don't
You
like
don't
that.
like the stretch jeans that they're wearing now?
Or
Yeah.
leggings. Like that's just not my thing. I don't do it.
You said I won't do it.
No.
Okay. All right. I have one other question.
Uh-huh.
If reincarnation existed, what would you want to come back as and why?
Ooh. Hmm. Just anything, like
Yeah.
not even a person.
Yeah.
Um,
Anything.
Probably a butterfly.
Ooh, I like that.
Probably a
Let
butterfly.
me guess why. Probably because a lot of pretty colors, maybe.
Yes, I love.
Ah, to fly around everywhere in everybody's backyard,
Yes,
landing on plants.
just think that's
Oh
so
God, that's awesome. Well, Tammy, I wanted you to let everybody know that's watching where they can buy your music, how they can support you, because I know that everything is stopped for all
great.
artists. And I'm sure a lot of you were in Australia last year and did a tour
Yes,
there. Were you
mhm.
set to go overseas this year as well?
I was
Yeah.
actually supposed to be in Europe right now.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I was supposed to leave on the 20th, and I was going to be coming back home June 15th.
Wow.
It was a tour. We were going to go to the UK, to Germany, and then end in Spain
Mm,
with Screaming Fest. Yeah, so that
wow.
has been postponed till next year.
To
So
next year. Okay.
all of my shows are just
Oh,
scared. Like, no.
somebody's asking what part of Europe. Noel is
Oh,
asking what.
okay. Um, let's see. I know we were gonna be in Germany and France. Hold on,
Mhm.
let me check to make sure because we were gonna be doing the Waldorf
Okay.
Festival, and that's in Germany.
Okay.
And then there was another one. Let's see. Hold on.
And Tammy, your email is, I mean, your website is misstammysavoy.com.
Miss
But
Tammy
where can they
Savoy.com.
donate? Like,
Tammy with an I.
with an I. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So
Mhm.
where can they, like, give something to you? Because we have so many incredible people on our page that really support artists, and I
Mhm.
know, I mean, everybody's struggling right now. That
Yeah.
have been lost jobs and furlough. Where could
Mhm.
they, if you have like a link they could go to buy music or donate or,
I
you know,
sure do. Yes. I've been telling people because I just got monetized on YouTube. So
Mhm.
I just need like more views and stuff and subscribers and stuff to start getting paid on there. I haven't yet. But
Mhm.
also on my Instagram I have a link. One of my friends started a GoFundMe for me.
Oh, that was sweet.
Yeah, I was
Yeah,
like, oh my gosh, thank
that's so
you.
sweet.
And it's been doing pretty good. And also on my website, www.misstammysavoy.com, I am selling 45s and CDs.
Okay, 45s and CDs.
Yes, 45.
45,
Yes,
yeah.
so you got a record player. You got to get. Now also, I have like the. So there's two. There's a black one and there's a teal one. So that's like
Mhm.
a limited edition.
Unlimited. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, Tammy, I wanted to thank you for taking the time to join me today. These Zooms are weird. Or these Facebooks are weird. trying to perform on,
They
because
have connection
yeah,
issues and stuff.
and I wanted our audience to hear you sing, but we'll have time to do that as time goes by. All of us will be home, for the next
I'm here.
for next year,
Yes,
Thank
absolutely.
you, and thank you for representing all women, really, but especially African American women with such class and beauty, and being so giving. Whenever I ask you, where'd you get your shoes from? Where'd you get your coat from? You're
Yeah.
always giving of that information. So, thank you for being who you are. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, I want everybody to know, like, anytime you have any kind of questions, like, just ask me. Like, I'm fine with that. I think some people get a little nervous about asking me stuff sometimes. I don't mind it at all. Like, just ask me anything.
Well, thank you, and thank you for being so giving. Love you, and I'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Everybody, that was Miss Tammy Savoy. We have Paige Wingard, who is our assistant. She's on our Heart in Hartstown giving the GoFundMe information. I will post that as well as the video ends. And my husband saying, "Am I allowed to say I love you, Tanya?" Yes, you are, honey. You are amazing. Thank you for being who you are in my life, and thank you for being the incredible father and husband and bandmate that you are to me. So we have up next incredible woman. I hope I'm saying her last name right as well, Melissa DePino, and she's the co-founder from Privilege to Progress. And I'm very excited to have her today because, as some of you, if you went online this morning, you saw the issue or the situation that happened in New York in Central Park, where the young woman called the police on a guy because he asked her to put a leash on her dog, and she went on to call the police to say that she was being attacked. She was a white woman and he was a black male. So we hear so many of these stories going on, and what I love about bringing Melissa on is that she's the answer. She and her partner are the answer to stories like this that are happening all around the United States of America right now. She's the hope. So I want to, without further ado, bring on my guest, Miss Melissa DePino. Am I saying it right?
Well, it's DePino. I'm
DePino.
Italian. Yeah.
Italian. I'm
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
it like a Spanish woman. And you're Italian. I just wanted to welcome you and say hello to you and thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so much. And that was very, very kind of you to say. I mean, I got a lot to say today. I've been since yesterday. And then, of course, there was the situation in Minneapolis yesterday where a black man was killed by police. With the police officer had his knee on the man's neck, and he was saying, "I can't breathe." And the thing you mentioned, the thing that happened with Amy Cooper, which is the white woman in Central Park, and that could have easily turned that way. That's the thing, and that's what people don't understand. So I really appreciate you saying that. We want everybody to really join us to use the privilege they have.
Yeah, I love what you all do. We had Michelle on the show. We talked a little bit about that. And can you just tell our listeners who are new to your story and how your organization came about?
Yeah, well, first I want to say I really appreciate and I love meeting you because I am a hardcore live music fan, and I saw you at Jazz Fest, and your music gives me life. I love it. So anybody who's watching who does not listen to the Warren Treaty and know Tanya and Michael, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. It's so beautiful. But anyway, so I'm a little fangirled out right now.
Thank you.
So what happened was a lot of people heard about that incident in the Philly Starbucks a couple of years ago. I was the person who shared that video of Dante and Rashawn getting unjustly arrested for just not buying a cup of coffee. Michelle was the person, Michelle, my partner from Privilege to Progress. She was the person who spoke up and who got my attention that day. I didn't know her. We didn't know each other. That's how we met. And what happened that day was, after I shared that video and it went viral, I was just getting a massive amount of attention. And I thought to myself, like, all I did was share it. Yeah. So when I sought out Michelle, we got together and we started From Privilege to Progress. We decided that we were going to try to keep that conversation going and basically replicate what happened that day, which is essentially she spoke up, I amplified her voice, and it spread. And then white people became aware that these things happen every single day. So it's really, really important that if you're white and you're listening here, that it's not your job to advocate for people of color. What is your job is to look inside and understand how you've been socialized and understand that your race matters in society. So what we ask people to do, we ask white people to follow us, to learn along with us, learn all those things we haven't learned in school, to speak up in your everyday life, and to amplify on social media. And Michelle and I do this together. We model conversations, what they can look like, how you can put, I know a lot of white women feel shame and defensiveness and guilt and all that kind of stuff. We model how you have these conversations and you turn that shame and guilt into an opportunity to make positive change, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And so let me ask you, because you all have different, I know, social campaigns and things that you do, you've been everywhere telling your story and just getting the word out. What are some of the responses that you've been getting around the country?
Well, it depends. It's interesting because on social media, we do a couple of things. So we do social media campaigns because part of our work is to desegregate that conversation online, because we know statistically if you're white, your social media network is 91 or 92% white, and you're rarely sharing about race. So we believe that day with the Starbucks thing is that it crossed over into those networks, that conversation got desegregated. So we keep asking people to follow us and share to desegregate. So we're doing those social media campaigns. Man, I gotta say, I've spent the weekend being like pretty pissed off at the comments.
Oh, wow. Wow.
But for the most part, I do feel that that people are showing up to our page. They are taking in what we're sharing. We're essentially constantly reading, constantly learning, constantly paying attention to what's going on. And then we are putting it together on our page so that people can become aware of current things they don't know and history, so that they can start to unlearn that racism that we all learned, right? Yeah. So when we do our public speaking events back in the day when we were all together, I gotta tell you, I think Michelle would say the same thing. Maybe she did last time when she was with you last week or 2 weeks ago, is that we walk away feeling really hopeful.
That's awesome.
We really do, because Michelle and I, we're not like academics, we're not researchers. We are just two regular human beings who are on this path to understanding ourselves and how we can be better in society and what we can do to contribute to a solution. And every one of us has that power within us, but you have to want to do it. You have to have some curiosity, some humility, and some desire to actually unlearn these things that you've learned.
That's so true. And it's interesting because I was saying to Michelle when she came on the show that we're in a market where you don't necessarily see a lot of African Americans doing the style of music that we do. But one thing that being out here and meeting so many amazing people that don't look like us is that there's all this hope. I think at the end of the day, the stories that get amplified are the stories that happen, like Minneapolis, or the story that happened with Ahmaud Arbery. These stories are amplified. And they're never, people don't look at the stories of a group like the Warren Treaty, or or like Black Pumas, where they're integrated band that's successful and amplify those stories. So I,
Yeah.
I agree with you that there's a lot of hope out there. And but at the same time, I like what you all do because it requires a high level of responsibility,
Yeah.
not just for white people, I think, or people of African American people, but my mother was Hispanic, growing up. So there's a lack of understanding even there.
Yeah.
I think that when we think of race relations, we just can't make it a Black issue or a white issue. And sometimes it becomes that because it's the foundation and the core of this country, but a lot of immigrants have moved here and this is their home too. So I love what you all do because it's so broad. It's not just the privilege of a white person, even though that's what the why you all start the organization,
Right.
but it's also the privilege of an African American person, that when a Hispanic person comes into this country, that they're not treated any differently because they can't speak the language. Because my mother was Spanish speaking, she had a very thick accent, and I can remember as a young person, being so ashamed to take her to school because people would tease her. They're like, your mother can't really, what is she speaking? And I was in a pretty much primarily Black school,
Yeah.
So those are the things too that when we think about our privilege is to really accept, and get involved
Yeah.
in whatever fight that is.
Yeah,
Um,
everyone has the thing about it is that we all have privilege.
yeah.
Michelle would say, she probably did. She would say that she's African. Her parents are from Ghana. That she
Mhm.
has a certain privilege in America too.
Yeah.
And we all have different kinds of privilege. And
Yeah.
when we talk about white skin privilege, we just mean that your skin is not a barrier to you in this country. That's
Yeah.
it. We don't mean you're rich. We don't mean you've had everything handed to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it really, everybody has a different degree of privilege. And that the thing is, and I know you mentioned Ahmaud Arbery and all the attention, the people pay attention at that, when those things happen. But what we're really trying to do is to make sure that we're working on it before those things happen.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
we're getting, we like all of a sudden, and I go on a tear because all of a sudden someone is killed and everybody starts paying attention. It's popping up on everybody's social media. They're running, they're posting. And while that is absolutely appreciated and necessary,
Yeah.
Don't stop there. Because if you stop there, then you're only doing it after the fact.
Yeah.
So what can you do now that you know? I had this conversation with my younger son today, who's 17, about this, and it's like, okay, well, do you blame these people that they're speaking up or they're posting about Ahmaud Arbery? And I said, absolutely not. But now that you know, I hold you responsible for what you do afterwards.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. And it's like eating. People when they get sick, instead of preventing these problems from happening, it's, oh my goodness, I'm sick now. Let me eat well.
Yeah.
So I don't think people really pay too much attention to the prevention part of it as they do to, what do they say, offense, defense, to stay on offense. It's like, okay, let me jump and do it. Let me defend it because it's happening to me now. So I asked Michelle this question, and I want to ask you the same question from a different perspective, because we actually had a couple of friends over the other day who don't look like me. They're white women and men, and our friends, and they were like, we just want a certain generation of people to die off so that we won't have to deal with this. And my thing was, well, here's the deal. What do we do now? Well, they asked me, what do we do now? And I said to them, I said exactly what we're doing. Our kids don't look like each other.
Yeah.
They're out here having a blast, but they know about the culture of America. I think you can't sweep it under the rug. You can't act like it's not happening. I think you teach and you let your kids know this is what happened in America. And if we don't do something about it, it could go back to that. And those are the things that we talked about. And they were just looking and they were like, wow. I was like, we're already doing it because we have our children communicating and, dealing with one another, and they don't look anything alike.
Right.
You
Right.
know, so I think it's, as adults, we run from, we don't want to deal with it, you
Yeah.
know, it's
Yeah.
because the guilt, you know. But I said that this isn't just Black Americans' history, it's American history.
It's America's, exactly.
You know,
They squeeze Black history into 1 month, right?
yeah,
Black history is American history, and American
yeah,
history is Black history, but squeezed
exactly.
into 1 month.
Yeah. And it's not just on the Black side. The history
Exactly.
of America is, this is what happened, and the ownership of it from people that are, whether they're Indian, whether they're white, the
Yeah.
ownership of it is that there were slave masters that were white,
Yeah.
you know, and that's a part of American history. And that might be your great great grandfather. And it's okay, because I'm not blaming you. It's a
Yeah.
part of the history that we came from. And those are hard conversations to have, you
Yeah.
know, very
Yeah.
hard conversations to have. But I think at the end of the day, you know, you've been to a War and Treaty concert, you've
Mhm.
seen the platform that we live really
Mhm.
is love. You
Yeah.
know, love has a way of making all this just look really silly.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I don't like you because your skin. That's
Yeah.
love.
Yeah. But I gotta say, if you talk about love, that's self-love too, because I feel like that for me, as I'll speak, I won't speak for all white women, I'll speak for me,
Yeah.
is that self-love means understanding all parts of yourself, all parts of your identity, right?
Yep.
Otherwise, you have things inside of you that are suppressed, that come out and that are harmful to you and harmful to other people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you understand all those parts of yourself, and your race is one of them, that's
Yeah.
a big part of yourself if you live here in America.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then that's love for yourself, that's love for other people. And
Mhm.
I don't think, look, I hate to say, I hope they all die off, but unfortunately, I don't think they're all going to die off, because I think there's plenty of people raising racist children right now.
Mhm.
But what we can do is if we weren't raised anti-racist, my generation of white people were not
Yeah.
raised anti-racist. We were raised not racist, which doesn't do anything.
Mhm.
You're sort of contributing to the problem. But
Wow.
we have the choice now to raise anti-racist kids, which is what your friends are doing. You're having those
Yeah.
conversations. You have friends of all different races. You're teaching them. I just posted the other day on our Instagram. A friend of mine is a scholar at Rutgers University, and she is a specialist in African American children's literature. And I published a whole list, a link to a list, so that white parents too can buy books that are from a different perspective, and
Yeah.
show characters that look different.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't raised with any books that had any characters that didn't look like me, or weren't written by people that looked like me.
It's very interesting that you say that, because as my guest before, Miss Tammy Savoy, we are a part of the vintage community. She's much deeper than I am, because I'm always doing music. And I was, I was just looking through the internet and looking online and trying to find stories of Black women who were pinups and in the retro community, and I couldn't find a lot of them. I had to dig real deep. And I was looking for T-shirts with people that looked like me, and I couldn't find them. So instead of me getting upset, I was like, I'll create my own line. So I created these shirts, of
Yeah.
cute little Black girls that wear vintage dresses, and are like Tammy. They don't like to wear stretch pants, and they don't like to twerk, and instead of twerking, we twirl. So, and there's nothing wrong with that, because I think that's shaming too, when you shame people for wanting to do whatever they want to do with their bodies. But I think it has to be representation, as you said, all around the spectrum, and so there are books like with Tay Diggs, he has a book about brown boys. So my son is homeschooled. Our friend up the street, they homeschool. They're white. They homeschool 6 of their kids. So I'll give her the book and let your kids read this book about this brown boy and some of the things and insecurities he may be going through because he doesn't look like your son. So I think, like you said, raising anti-racist, children is the answer. It's not enough to say, to put like Legend, our son, he's in a community where I haven't seen anybody that looks like him here, but he doesn't. It's not something that is bothering him. We just teach him you're brown, they're a different color. Here's your history. Here's their history.
Mhm.
But I think that's the answer. The answer is what you just said. Sending out links to people that don't look like you and saying, "Hey, look, here's another alternative to reading," and besides the green caterpillar or the hungry
Mhm.
caterpillar.
Yeah. Well,
You
it has
know?
to be intentional. It has to
Yeah.
be intentional. And like it's really I'm not asking, all my, white friends to be an activist like me. I'm not asking them to go out and scream on some stage or whatever. What I'm asking is that they just follow along with us and learn with us and unlearn those things that have been socialized into us so that they can raise their children in a way that they weren't raised. Now that they know, don't turn away, right?
Yeah. Let me ask you, because you said socialized,
Yeah.
and because it's different, Michelle and I would know as Black women what that looks like from our perspective.
Mhm.
What does it look like from your perspective? What are some of the socialized things that, maybe two or three? I'm sure there are
Yeah,
many
yeah,
more.
yeah. I mean, a lot. I mean,
Yeah.
when I grew up, so I grew up in an all white, well, yes, I'll say all white suburb of Philadelphia. Everyone was pretty much Catholic, Irish, Italian. We were taught by our parents, well, at least I was taught by my parents, you don't talk about race, right? It was that colorblind thing, right?
Mhm.
Oh, I don't see color. We're all the same. So I was socialized in that way. I would say to think that it's shameful or wrong to talk about race. Which what does that do to people? Okay, so for example, I have a friend who's was with her little son in the grocery store, and there was a Black man walking by, and he said something like, "Oh, that man's Black" or something. And my sister went, my friend went, "Shh." You don't talk about it, right? Now I know, I understand it was embarrassing, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
But you have to let your kids know that it's not, there's nothing wrong with being Black.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. That's very important. That's very important. And
That's,
on the same token, it works that way if you're a Black woman. My son, my oldest son went to school on Capitol Hill, so all of his friends were pretty much white kids. And he was on the soccer team, pretty much the only Black kid on the soccer team. And I remember one day, all the kids were running, and the kids' hair were blowing in the wind, and my son says to me when he gets home, he says, "Mom, uh, I want to take my braids out and I want my hair to blow in the wind like Billy's hair." And he has white hair. And I had to say to him, I said, "Well, honey, based on the texture of your hair will never blow in the wind."
yeah.
I had to teach him that, because you don't have that texture of hair. And he said, "Well, is it because I'm white?" I said, "That's a part of it, but you don't have that texture of hair. Their hair texture is very different. Hair is hair. When you break it all the way down, it all comes from the same root. But your hair is very coarse and it's very, curly. And so you'll never have your hair blowing through the wind like Billy's hair will." And from that point on, I never had to really have that conversation with him
Yeah.
about race. And I think he was 8 years old, when that happened, and it was never an issue. But I think, as you said, even if you see, like my son, our youngest boy, he'll say things all the time like, "Oh, look at her cheeks. They're red. She's blushing. That's
Yeah.
my can't blush because I'm a Black boy." He says stuff like that. And I don't shush him because
Yeah.
he's a Black boy, she has pink, beautiful cheeks because she's a little white girl. And it's just a part of what it is,
It is. It is. It is. And the socialized thing. I mean, look at the TV we watched.
Yeah.
Look at, I'm speaking for my generation, which is I grew up. I grew up in the 80s, essentially 70s, 80s, essentially. The TV we watched, the things we saw in the news. I mean, we were taught that either Black men were suspects in a crime.
Mm.
On
Wow.
the news, right? Or we were taught, don't talk about it.
Wow.
You don't see color. Like there are so many different ways, and it's so deeply internalized that we don't even know it's there. So I do get those trolls on Instagram that will be like, oh, stop with your white guilt and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm not trying to guilt you.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, if you didn't know, now you know.
Yeah. And you know, it's interesting because I think this time that we're living in, this pandemic that we're in, you know, somehow the universe has made us all play on the same playing field.
Yeah.
You know, and as much as we want to deal with race and things are happening, people are getting killed, and it's, you know, detrimental to our society, I think people are way more conscious of what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah,
I think they're very conscious. And, you know, I'm in Tennessee, so it's the Bible Belt. You know, there's still some remnants, certain things here. But you know what? For the most part, all of us are wearing masks. All of us are afraid of catching COVID. You know, it's an even playing field, you know, for everybody. So, and I think that's the hope. I think we will, as a society, come out better. Because of this situation. And I don't know, you know, I don't know what is going to happen, what legislation has to happen before these modern day lynchings have to stop. But, you know, I think having an organization like yours and having the conversation like you and I are having and dealing with some real hard truths that, you know, as a white woman in America, these are some basic baselines of what you thought about or what you saw growing up, you know, about Black men. And, you know, that's just the way it is.
We still see that. I mean, I saw something the other day that was like, Google white teenagers and see what comes up. And oh no, sorry, I had that wrong. Google 4 teenagers and see what comes up, and go Google 4 Black teenagers and see what comes up. And it's just so ingrained into everything, the way people are represented, the way Black people are represented. So we're trying to dismantle that within people. We're trying to get people to look inside of themselves and examine those things that they don't even know why they believe them.
Yeah.
And then when you get the individual, that's how you can then start to change society. We believe you got to start inside.
Yeah, it has to start inside. It has to start with the visibility. You know, that's why I wanted Tammy on the show, because you don't see African American women walking around dressed looking like that every day. And that's not an outfit. It's not a stage production. It's not theater. It's not on a film like Mad Men or, you know, or the Hollywood film that just came out. This is really who she is. You know, this is every day. If you catch her at home, you know, going out to a concert, on her shows, it's actually who she is. So I think that representation is very important, that, you know, people not only see, you know, and it goes into feminism, women, you know, all the spectrum is long and wide, you know.
And you know what, like, there's so much that there's so much to do, and there's so much to talk about. And, you know, we decided, because of our origin story, like, we are like we're like picking this lane, and we're focusing on this specific thing that we think replicates what happened that day in the Starbucks. But all these other things come into it, and we do share that kind of stuff too, like, so you can understand what intersectionality is, so you can understand, you know, how immigrants are suffering in this country in all these different ways. But it's all about, you know, I think I put this the other day in something, one of the captions I wrote. It's all about cleansing your lens. That lens you look through it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility.
Yeah.
And once you start to cleanse it and see, you'll realize that things are not what you think they are. I'm talking to a lot of people my generation, particularly, you know, women, and you see a lot of them ending up on the viral videos, right?
Yeah.
Using and as I said, like, using their whiteness as a weapon. I mean, that's what that woman did.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's a sad story, and, you know, it shouldn't happen, but I just choose to believe that there are so many stories that, you know, are way more incredible than that story.
Yes.
And I think that what you guys are doing, you're bringing awareness to it, but at the same time, you're also giving an answer to it. And I think that's it, because we like to harp on, oh, this happened to us, but then there's no plan so it won't happen again, you know.
Yeah.
Or we talk about, oh, there's no visibility for, women of color. All you see us doing is twerking and cussing and acting crazy on certain shows, but there is, so I wanted to just make sure that we could have these conversations, and we keep having these conversations, and people keep finding out about what you and Michelle do with From Privilege to Progress. And I just wanted to ask one last question before we end. What is it that you think, besides being aware, that people could do? Let's start here. That white people could do to help us move forward, because I think you and I think the same way. We believe in hope.
Yep.
And we believe in self-love. So what are some of the things that could take place right now that we can make that?
So I wouldn't be doing this if I weren't hopeful. And I have to say, every day since that Starbucks video, I get more hope, because even if I see one person, two people say, oh my gosh, I didn't know this. Every day I see that on our social media or in a conversation about in real life. But we are all about action. But here's the thing. First thing you have to do is you have to learn, and you have to become aware of the things that you don't know. And so that's why we ask you to join us, because what we're going to do is constantly share educational resources. We're not going to be asking you to read like big, heavy books or anything like that in the first stage. You might do that down the line, but we're going to say, here, watch this movie, or listen to this podcast, or read this article. So we're going to give you things that you can read to sort of unlearn those things that are inside of you that you don't even know are there. So that's the first thing we're going to ask you to learn. So, and then we're going to ask you to share, because just like every single person who retweeted that Starbucks video that day, that helped to spread the word into these segregated networks so that people understood what they could do. And thirdly, we ask people to amplify the voices of people of color, because just like Michelle that day, she would have gone unheard, disbelieved, unacknowledged, sadly, if she had shared it, very likely.
Yeah.
But because I amplified it, it made some sort of a difference. On our page, every single day we share things you can do, calls you can make, if there's something immediate that you can do. We share different quotes from different people that will help you understand what it is you're working toward. But together, we learn together. We're learning together. So come to our page and you can join us.
You know what I love about you, just talking to you, and I got chills as you were talking, because I really, believe that Dr. King is smiling right now. Because, this fight that they fought during the civil rights movement wasn't just the fight of Black people. They were all people. Yes. And there were some people that were white people that died, in this fight, that their names may never be mentioned, and I think that's really what you all have done, is you've said, this is how you can be a part of it. Yeah. And it's always been everybody coming together to amplify a situation, and in order for the situation to change. It can't just be one group of people saying this is wrong, this is wrong, this is wrong. Yeah. And I think that's why the civil rights movement impacted the way it did, because if you look at these marches on the videos, you do see the police officers, white police officers, hosing down the children because they were kids, and the dogs attacking them. But you also see hand in hand white people walking with them in this crowd. And I think that's the American story that you and Michelle are reflecting, that you are picking up that banner and saying, hey, look, this has been happening a long time, and we have just decided to keep it going. That when we come together with information, when we come together with hope, when we come together with a strategy, because if you know this strategy, it can happen. And I'm just so I want to stay in contact with you all because I think it's important for the platform that we have to be able to continue to educate not just white people, but also Black people. And how you deliver this information and where it's loving, it's not, people don't feel attacked. There's already guilt there anyway, and whenever you're dealing with a guilty conscience or whatever, there's going to be a block there, you know.
Exactly.
But when these conversations happen and you can say some of the things that you need to say, even if I'm not necessarily offended, but taken aback by it, I can at least hear it.
Exactly. And Michelle and I, I know Michelle and I would say the same exact thing about this, is that we believe that it's that when one of us hurts, we all hurt.
Yeah.
And that it's that us working together is for our collective healing, because racism hurts everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone.
Yeah.
So you will, like, if you're white and you join us on this path and you start to dismantle this within yourself, I promise you're going to start to feel freer within yourself. You're going to start to feel more fully human and part of a collective.
Yeah.
And you're going to help society be better for everybody's children and not just your own.
Yeah. And I was going to say that before I let you go, that I think sometimes too, it's when you're in a community where all you see is yourself, it's segregated, not just white communities, but Black communities too. There's not a lot of white people walking around, Berry Farms in Washington, D.C.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's the ghetto. So you don't see that. And then there are not a lot of African Americans walking around in a lot of, affluent communities, unless they, are of a certain financial status. So how do people, so I think the last question I want to ask is, how do people outside of, what you said?
Technical difficulty. I had to plug in my computer.
Oh, no, it's okay.
Okay, I'm good.
It happens. Look, we've gone real long without anything happening. So, woo!
Yeah, I'm good now. I was at 5%.
So when you're in an environment where you don't see it, where it doesn't affect you, because it, every day, how do people get involved outside of, joining you? How do they get involved right in their communities where there's nothing there that says there's no racism because there's no Black people, or there's no racism because there's no white people? How do people?
It has to be intentional. It has to be intentional. I went to a friend of mine, Andre Lee, has a company called Point Made Learning, and they do this film called I'm Not Racist, Am I? They show it and they do conversations afterwards. And I was at one of their screenings in a very white suburban area last year, I think it was. And I watched everybody after that film, when he had the discussion, this all white crowd, like, raised their hand and said, I had no idea, and just sort of shock at the things that they learned that are very basic to you, but just shocked because, like you said, it's not in your field of vision when you're in this bubble of, this all white world, you don't see it. So it has to be intentional. So if you're in a situation like that, of course, follow us, but watch different things on TV. Talk to people that don't look like you.
Yeah.
Read different books. You have to intentionally open your world.
Yeah.
It's not just going to come to you.
Yeah.
Doesn't require a lot.
It's like kindergarten. Everything you learned in kindergarten. Love everybody. Get involved.
Go see your show. That'll give you life. Go see your show.
I'm just so happy that you had an opportunity to join me. I thank you for the work that you're doing. Many, many blessings to you as you move forward. And I'm just so proud to say that I know you and Michelle, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Tanya. Thank you to Michael, and you two are like your relationship goals, the two of you.
Oh, that's my baby. That's my sweetheart. So thank you.
You guys make everyone believe in love.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tanya. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you all so much for joining me today. I know sometimes these situations and talking about certain things can be really, really tough. But you know what? We're good. We can do anything. We're the human race. We are equipped for this, and I'm just so grateful that you all joined us. And yes, Carol, I see your comment. This discussion, she said, it inspires me to have conversations like this with my friends and acquaintances, and that's all that this is about. Being inspired, being motivated, knowing that on the other side of this pandemic, on the other side, when we can all get together, that we all have a different perspective, that we all if you're already doing the work and you're already not living in the bubble, then good for you. Yes, thank you so much for doing that, and thank you so much for supporting the Warren Treaty and what we do. We love you all so much. We talk about the human race all the time, so it's just a part of who we are, on a daily basis. And thank y'all so much for joining me. Next week, Michael will have, I believe he's going to have, if Paige, can you post who he's going to have next week in that link, and I'll post it as well. I just want to make sure before I get offline that I let you all know who's going to be on here next week with Michael Mondays. But today, actually, at 7 p.m. Central Time, we're going to be on a Facebook Live with Georgia on My Mind with our friend Amy Ray from the Indigo Girls. She's doing a free online benefit concert. And you can go to @Heartland TV. We'll post the link as well on our Facebook page so that you can watch it. Yeah, so next week, Winston Marshall from our friend Winston from Mumford and Sons will be joining, my sweetheart, and it's going to be a great time as well, always whenever we link up with our lads, Mumford and Sons. So thank y'all so much. If you get a chance tonight to watch us at 7 p.m. Central Time, it's going to be a Facebook Live event. I think it's at Heartland TV. I could be wrong. I'm not really good with that kind of thing, so I'll make sure that we have all that information. I love you. Thank you for tuning in to another Tanya Tuesday, and have an amazing Tuesday. Love you. Bye-bye.